So, where do I begin? How long has it been? It feels like a long time, but at the same time it doesn't. I was working on the video for Mother, probably known a little more now as Earthbound Beginnings. And I was actually almost done, except for one part where I was extremely dissatisfied with it. And I was doing it over and over again because I can be an absurd perfectionist, but more on that later. But one day, green lines started appearing on the left side of my computer. I had no idea what it was, and I was hoping it wouldn't escalate. So the next time I turn on my computer, the entire thing is covered in some kind of static, and I'm obviously alarmed. I actually really liked that computer. That was my dream computer until it wasn't. It was an all-in-one, and it came with this nice glass keyboard, which also stopped working eventually. But for some reason, I didn't realize at the time that it being an all-in-one, despite selling itself as a desktop, is actually in between a laptop and a desktop. Therefore, while it's good enough for editing and gaming and things such as that, it's also not the most ideal situation. I know it sounds like I'm sidetracking, but there will be a point to this as I go along. So I can't see anything on my computer, and I ask an old friend of mine to look at it. He takes it home and opens the computer up. According to him, and forgive me for not remembering the technical terms, but there are things that make a screen work, both at the top and the bottom of the inside of the screen. And if they're on the bottom, they're replaceable, but if they're on the top, the damage is much harder to deal with. Apparently the things on top were the problem with mine, and as a result, my all-in-one became a piece of junk, at least for a while. I wondered if it was perhaps the gaming and the editing that damaged it, which is why I brought up all those things I did before. Apparently this kind of thing can happen fairly randomly and may even depend on the outlets you use, or on the electrical currents in your house. Some screens can last over a decade, while others can give out like mine in like 2 years. At the same time, there were a few other factors involved. On one hand, I was a little exhausted from the History of RPGs project, and that was partly my fault. I was very inefficient at times, which made things harder for me and made projects longer than usual. I have two major obstacles when it comes to this project. Number one, I am too much of a perfectionist. There is a saying that the perfect is the enemy of the good, and that's something I've been trying to teach myself. One of the things I've heard other YouTubers say is that sometimes when a video needs to come out, it just needs to come out. But in general, if/when I bring the series back, due to the size of the projects, I may need to take things down a notch. At least in terms of how highly edited the videos are. Not too many notches, just maybe one notch down. The reason you're all here is because you want a high quality video with high quality content. Not only do I understand that, but it's what I want. But I will need to take it down one notch. Because if I don't, in the end it'll just become too much of a pain to make those videos. Number two, I will need to be more organized, though I think I have that one a little more stabilized already. Especially in my early videos, I was highly disorganized. And any editor will tell you that one of the most important things about efficient editing is being able to have all that you need in a ready-to-go orderly format. All in all, if I can confidently do these things, then the project would definitely come back. But both of those made the process more exhausting than it should have been back then, which was already issue enough due to the size of those videos. Another thing was that I was doing an analysis of the first Mother game and I wasn't really enjoying myself, neither the game nor making the analysis. It just wasn't an enjoyable experience, and really this is a minor point, you just have to power through those kinds of things at the end of the day. But it was just one of those things that, when added on to everything else, made things much worse. Another thing that was going on, and perhaps this one is more important than the other things that I mentioned, is that I have a dream, as cheesy as that may sound. My dream is to do a series of TV shows that incorporate aspects of classical high fantasy, urban fantasy, superheroes, and various things I like in anime that don't really fall into any neat categories and in any one thing, but I don't really see being done in live action. And so for years I've been slowly developing the world, putting together outlines for scripts, and ever since I stopped doing YouTube, I admit that I was super inspired, which was why sometimes I wonder if the entire thing was an act of God. I have developed more for this world, its history, its characters, and its outline more in the past year than I have ever since I came up with the ideas years ago. And I admit that kept me super busy to the point that nothing else in my free time mattered. I also admit I used to be really bad at organizing my time in constructive ways, so it would have been hard for me to do two things at once. Now I'm much better at organizing my time. So if I want to, say, upload a small YouTube video like this one and also work on my personal projects, it's way less of a hassle. But despite all that, every now and then I would look at my poor all-in-one computer. And I did try to see if you could double screen it onto a television, and it didn't work. So I pretty much left it alone for a long time. But there was a reason it didn't work. Now prepare yourself to laugh at me. I had plugged the HDMI into the input rather than the output. Let's just say at some point I had the inkling in the back of my head that I did something that silly, and one day when I had the time, lo and behold, I was able to test my mistake and it turned out to be true. It turned out to be a bit of trouble to make it work, since in order to double screen, you have to hit Ctrl plus P and then hit the prompt on the screen. So I had to do that and then take a bit of a guess where the prompt would appear on the screen, which I remind you didn't work anymore, or didn't work properly anymore. And I managed to guess correctly, thankfully, primarily because there's a general area where the prompt shows up. So I purchased a new monitor knowing the computer does work now. Funnily enough, sometimes when the computer is turned on, the main screen will work, even if it's like just one day a week. But that was the story with that. However, I want to mention that I have not been idle. Whenever I play a retro game, I always record so that I have a ton of stockpiled footage for whatever game comes out next in the series. And I did take large amounts of notes when I played those games. So there certainly is some prep work there. So if/when the project comes back, while I do want to salvage that Mother video, I'll probably come back with a Final Fantasy III project, because my notes for that game are pretty organized and I did really enjoy it. I admit I'd want to come back with an analysis of a game I truly liked. I don't mind doing negative reviews, not at all. When it was time to talk about how dated Phantasy Star 2 was, it was time. And I know some people who grew up with that game may disagree with me when it got time to get harsh. But it was what it was, in my opinion. But I feel like it would be a little weird to come back and put out a video where I talk about how difficult it was to enjoy the first Mother title. It would just feel weird to me. It would be like, hey, you're back and you're ragging on this game. It would just be very weird personally. Anyhow, Dragon Quest Builders 2 is a way of easing back into YouTube. It's far easier to put a small video together showing off some amusing things that I made and talk about it or talk over it like I'm doing here. Even the uploading process is much easier. Like an episode of the History of RPGs would take like a whole hour to upload and process to YouTube. So when I uploaded that video the other day, I went to do something else and then I looked back 5 minutes later and I was like, oh, it's done. I also plan to throw a few other ideas at the wall and see if they bear any fruit. But hopefully, God willing, I will pump out more History of the RPGs videos. So we shall see going forward from here. Also, to quickly address those who are patrons and one or two people who decided to patron me even though I haven't made a video in over a year. I expected you all to be gone, but apparently you all remained. Oh, and to those who are not patrons, my thing was set up so that it was per video, not per month. So I repeat, I was not taking anyone's money while I was gone. That would have been very corrupt of me if it was set up that way. Though I imagine they would have really depatroned me if that was the case, and they would have been justified in doing so. Obviously, I am not going to start patroning these smaller videos because that's not what you patroned for. I won't charge for anything unless I have another History of the RPGs video to put out. I'm not here to steal anyone's money, You patroned for a specific service, and I would only charge for that specific service. And if, like tomorrow, I gained a sudden burst of strength and energy and pumped out that Final Fantasy III video, I would give fair warning, so if anyone wanted to de-patron and run for the hills, I would give them ample opportunity to do so. So, there is that. Anyway, to all of you out there who are still subscribed, thank you for remaining subscribed. It warmed my heart to see that so many people were thankful to have me back. It's always nice to know that you were missed. And lastly, I have never streamed before, but I am considering doing a stream on Sunday night because Sunday is my birthday. But if you're around and I do decide to do it, I'll post a video letting you know what time it is. All in all, that seems to be it. Thank you for listening. I hope this video explained everything properly. Thank you for watching, and God bless you all.